Hi, my name is Shlomo Schwartz. I'm an Orthodox rabbi, and I like to present Jewish teachings to everyone, Jews and non-Jews alike, because the wisdom of Jewish teaching pierces the confusion that sometimes enters our life, in the same way that the voice of my grandson, Yoni Stern, pierces the heavens in this song. I just love that. I have some insights you might find so helpful that they'll change your life. It comes from carefully analyzing the Jewish high holidays at the start of each year, but it applies all year and to all religions. My video on the secret chord uncovered how God's favorite number is 3, as we can see from the 3 facts that He gave us: a 3-dimensional world that has 3 states of being, gas, liquid, and solid, and has 3 natural time cycles: day, month, and year. He also placed us on the 3rd planet from the sun, and He also got us involved by having us blow the shofar ram's horn with 3 times 3 times 3 sound bites, 3 to the 3rd power, which we do 3 times on Rosh Hashanna, the Jewish New Year. These shofar sounds of 3 tiptoe into our soul, as music often does. That's not the only way God had us experience 3 at this time of year. He gave us 3 types of days, 3 holy days, and 3 things to do. We not only hear these 3s, we put them on our calendar. The 3 types of days are a sabbatical feast day, Rosh Hashanna, the New Year, a sabbatical fast day, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. One way of understanding atonement is that we are at one with God. It's a 24-hour fast where you don't eat, drink, or work, and otherwise behave as if we were angels. In between these 2 types is the 3rd type of day, regular weekdays, that are made special with some of the same prayers as Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The 3 holy days come about through sort of a divine error. In the Torah, God declared only one day as New Year's, but logistically, it's a whole story. Rosh Hashanah has to be 2 days. It just has to be. Add 1 more day for Yom Kippur, and you have a total of 3 holy days. In English, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are called the high holidays. On each of these holy days, we do no work. We also recite a list of 3 things to do: tshuva, which means repentance; tefillah, which means prayer; and tzedakah, which means charity. This is all so similar to the shofar sounds, where we found 3s wrapped within 3s over and over. There is another 3. The reason we are told to do these 3 things is to ensure a good year, because every year at this time, God judges the whole world, not just the Jews, and He does it in 3 stages. Jewish teachings agree with other religions that there is a final judgment after death. All religions also agree that God runs the world, which means He is making judgments, decisions on what to do all the time. As I will show, it would be healthy for other religions to follow the Jewish awareness of an annual judgment. Jewish teaching says on Rosh Hashanah, He writes our judgment down. On Yom Kippur, He seals it, and about 12 days later, He starts dispatching it. 3 stages: writing, sealing, and dispatching the judgment. For centuries, Jews acted this out. They fervently repented last year's sins and faults so that God would grant them a new year of life and prosperity. That was in a world where everybody knew about God, and the only question was what to do about it. Today, some devout still act this way, but not so many. I know a few, and they're unusual people, but there's only a few of them. Even the religious do not get too fervent about it. They go through the motions, but the intense fervor is missing because the certainty of God is missing. Certainty is missing because there are so many questions. For example, judgment on last year is sort of like a final exam. Why doesn't God do that at the end of last year, just like we do for final exams? A bigger question: 10 days later is Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, when God promises to forgive us. So if He's going to forgive us 10 days later, why not wait till after that before judging us? Isn't it a waste of time to judge us earlier? Finally, the biggest and most serious question: nothing seems to change. The devout don't live any better than the non-religious or even the people of other religions. So what's the point? The whole thing seems to be a charade. People in other religions probably have the same kinds of questions about the religious things they do, which explains why so many people have stopped being religious altogether. If you had these kind of questions about your next employer, you might not take the job. To start answering, I'm going to suggest that some of these notions come from another traditional name of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Hadin, translated as Day of Judgment. Focusing on judgment is a guilt trip through the past year. That used to motivate people to behave better in the future, but it doesn't work so much anymore. So we might as well translate it more correctly. Din doesn't mean judgment. Mishpat does. Din means verdict, which is another word for a decision. A better name for Yom Hadin is Day of Decision, which focuses on the future. God is deciding what to do with us in the future. Right off the bat, that better translation explains why it's at the start of a new year and not the end of the old one. Here is a new way of looking at the Jewish high holidays. God provided a training course to refresh our skills at improving ourselves over the coming years. That would work for everyone, for every religion. The course takes 10 days, from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. We call it the 10 days of tshuva, translated as 10 days of repentance. But that translates just part of the story. The full story is self-improvement, as we shall see. In order to improve, we first have to be willing to admit to our mistakes. That's not so easy for a lot of people, so we start with something easy. You'll never believe it. It's sins to God. A sin is something we didn't think was so bad. That's why we did it. But apparently, we could have done better. So we'll apologize to God. It's not too hard to apologize to God because we can't see Him growling at us. And anyways, He has a reputation for forgiving. So this is the new insight. Repenting from sins is just a practice run for improving ourselves according to our own goals that we find so hard to achieve. After practicing a bit each day since the new year, Rosh Hashanah, on Yom Kippur, we act like angels and pray most of the day in the synagogue. It's the booster shot to make sure that it lasts. That's another insight. Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, comes last as a booster shot for admitting our mistakes over as the year progresses. Earlier I said, repenting from sins is just a practice run for improving ourselves. Is that a kosher statement? Well, sins deserve elaborate explanation, but in a nutshell, I'm not talking about those sins that are failures to self-improve, such as wasting time, harming others, and ego tripping. Those aren't practice. They're the real thing. But what about religious sins, like eating non-kosher, working on the Sabbath, and not attending services? Are those just for the sake of practice? Well, even if they are, they might be worth it because self-improvement is so very, very hard and rare. Practice is vital. However, I suspect God chose practice exercises that carry their own side benefits. Like kosher teaches you to control your appetite. That's useful in any religion and most of the time. Shabbat gives you time off to enjoy and assess your life, which is also equally applicable. And attending services gives you a community with common goals. There are other side benefits that keep our spirit growing, although we can't see them. They're like the cholesterol pills that my doctor insists I take. I don't feel bad before I take them, and I don't feel better after I take them. But every so often, my doctor checks my blood and assures me that, silently, the pills are preventing blood clot from killing me. Just like we can't feel our blood flowing through our bodies, we usually can't feel our spirit growing. But we can feel it soar as a result of the growing, but not the growing itself. That comes from the pills of the religious activities. Like any parent, our Father in heaven is looking forward to our spirit growing, to soar to our full potential. Nobody's perfect. He knows that, and we know that. But he also knows that we can always do better, and I think we know that too. Every religion believes that. That's one reason he keeps presenting us with threes. 3 wake-up calls, 3 chances, 3 experiences, 3 things to do, to drum into us a pattern of growth. Speaking of patterns, maybe that's why it's 3s. 3 is the minimum number needed to establish a pattern. And speaking of 3s, there are 3 parts to this analysis of the high holidays. the 10 days of repentance. This was part 1.